What up, Envoys? Today I have another build for you guys. It is Gyre. We're doing this because of the new augment mod. It's actually really fun, and I thoroughly enjoy it. So, like always, we'll start with the Archon shards. And just to preface, it is very expensive. As you can see, it's three purple shards, which are the plus 15 ability damage on enemies affected by electricity status, which will always be active because we're constantly doing electricity in one way or another. So we have three of those here, and then two ability strength, just to get our strength to a certain threshold, which I'll go over here in a second. Our two is being replaced by pillage instead of our one because the augment affects the one. And this will allow us to fully armor strip at one point and allow our electricity damage to do even more. So moving on to the build itself, as soon as it decides to load for some reason, here's the build. We have corrosive projection here because we want, once Molt Augmented is fully active with the 60%, we'll be in range that corrosive projection will give us the remaining percentage needed to fully armor strip enemies, which is extremely nice. If you don't want to do this, you could put growing power here instead. I just prefer corrosive projection so I can fully armor strip. Then we have Prime Sure-Footed. You can use Preparation because that's really good on her, or one of the Drift mods, up to you. However, I should preface, if you get knocked on your ass as Gyre, you're going to die. It is unfortunate how it is. Like, it doesn't matter how much shield you have, you will die, unfortunately. Next, we have Prime Continuity for ability duration, Adaptation for damage. For survivability. You can do rolling guard here. I do prefer that sometimes. However, adaptation sometimes comes out on top depending upon which faction you're going up against. It's up to you. In my opinion, rolling guard is better. I just need adaptation sometimes. Next, we have Archon Stretch for ability range and energy from electricity damage. Since we're constantly doing electricity damage, this is constantly proccing. Then we have Flow for some energy max. Then Blind Rage and Intensify for our ability strength. And the final two slots are the two augments that Gyre has, which the first one is Cathode Current, and the new one, which is Conductive Sphere. Do note, if you don't like Conductive Sphere, it's fine. However, Cathode Current is a massive requirement for this build, and you absolutely need to use it because otherwise Gyre feels terrible without it. Honestly, I kind of wish this was baseline and Cathode Current did something different. That's just unfortunately how it's going. But Cathode Current is required. Conductive Sphere can be whatever you want if you don't feel like using this. You will just do a lot more damage with this, and I'll show that later in the Simulacrum Test. And then finally, Molt Efficiency for more ability durations. We'll always have our shields active thanks to Pillage. So this is constantly active, and then Molt Augmented for the remaining strength that we need to get a full armor strip. Now, moving on to the weapons. The first one is the Amprex. Of course, we're going to use an electricity-based weapon because fits the theme. Uh, the first part of the mods are Chamber, Aptitude, Critical Life, Vital Sense, as you're used to. We are running Viral with electricity, which does a lot of damage as well. Prime Shred for fire rate and punch through, which does work on this, so it's really nice to see it just delete extra enemies. And then we also have a Riven here. If you don't have a Riven, Bane mod, more status, more fire rate, whatever you feel like putting here. Sinister Reach for beam length, because if you're going to use a beam weapon, why not? And then Primary Merciless for the damage. For our secondary, we are using the Grimoire. I won't go in depth on this build because the Grimoire is basically up to taste. The only thing I would recommend is Encumber, so you can get more statuses on your enemies while Galvanized Shot increases its own damage, which is extremely nice. As for the Canticle, I normally use the shield recharge. However, if you're with a group, you can always use is it Jahu? Yeah, Jahu to just quickly reduce armor and shields faster, or you might as well just use the fire rate one instead because you're already armor stripping. Again, it's up to you depending upon how you use the Grimoire. And then for the invocations, I use strength. However, the duration or the efficiency one is also really good, depending upon what you feel comfortable doing. Again, here's the build. If you want to copy it, I recommend you doing it on your own, as it depends on what suits your own tastes. Moving on to the final weapon, we're using the Coda Causacyst because melee influence on an electric build. Why not? Because it's just funny with this. This is a status build with melee influence. Basically, we're spreading so much electricity and whatnot, it's deleting enemies. This build is just so fun. You will just go through, and even with your one active, it's so funny to watch things just die from electricity. uh Finally, the companion. This one's up to you. I use the Diriga merely for the fact that sometimes my abilities don't reach to farther enemies, but the Diriga can. So it's proccing stretch and whatnot, and just a few other things. I've shown off the Diriga multiple times. I'll post a link up in the top corner to show you a build that does use the Diriga. Uh, don't feel like going over it like 16 times, so there's that. Moving on to the Simulacrum Test. I'm going to show you guys how this works. So what you're going to do is you're going to activate your 3, then you're going to activate your 4, you're going to throw down your 2, activate your 1 to open the orb, and just shoot through it to watch the enemies just die. I should have aimed that sphere a little better. You always want to be shooting the enemies through the sphere or them be in the sphere. So we're going to throw this down again. Activate this, throw the alt fire, start shooting. And as you can see here, even the Grimoire can delete these guys. And then finally, the Coda Causacyst. I'm going to throw our 1 down again just to be sure, and just come in here swinging. And there you guys go. Next is the Solo Steel Path run, so you guys can see it in action. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.